This is my wife, Cherie.
Hello, Dave and Sheree. How'd you find out?
Saw you guys at the fairgrounds 3-4 months ago. What was that? The health
Health
fair
fair,
or something
health
like
and
that?
wellness fair,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. Yep. We
Great.
finally found a meeting. Yay.
Well, welcome. Happy that you made it to the first meeting. Scott's going to share his journey with you a bit, and we're thrilled to have you.
Thank you.
Anybody else who's new? Go
Yeah,
ahead, Brian.
I am. Yeah, I'm Brian, and let's see. Nikki, who I don't know if she's here, has been talked to me about this a number of times, and so there she is. She's just coming on. Hi, Nikki. So she encouraged me to give this a try. So I'm trying to change my diet and lose some weight, and that sort of thing. So.
That's great. We are happy to have you, and we encourage you to stick with a few classes. Just kind of hang in there a bit, and we'll encourage you along on your path. We are not police. We don't give tickets for anybody who chooses to do something different than what we kind of share as being the healthiest science as we see it. And so join in, and if you have questions, feel free to ask.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
There maybe even a couple other new ones, Scott. This is amazing. We're thrilled, huh?
Yeah. Anyone else want to share how they found out about the classes and introduce themselves?
I'm Deborah, and I heard from a friend of mine about the class, and I've been eating plant-based diet since I went to True North in May of 2020, and so I just feel like I need more support, and the more the merrier. It's done wonders for my lifestyle and my health.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
so far so good.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you for sharing that. And for those of you who are really new, that's the importance of having a group of people together. Some of people who have experience and some people who don't can share, support each other, help each other through issues, and yet be understanding that not everybody is going to be doing the same thing. Who else?
I'm new. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
It took me a little while to get my mic. I'm on my cell phone, so everybody's really tiny. But anyway, yeah, I'm excited about this class. I heard about it through Sherry Bosch Nutrition.
Yeah.
It's hard to get in to see him, and they said, well, there's a class online that you ought to check out. And one of the things that I have, as I'm getting older, I'm getting really common things that I know my diet can, if not eliminate, improve. And one of them is fatty liver disease.
Mhm.
So I'm interested, I'm ready to learn, and I'm excited.
This is the right class.
Great.
Okay, welcome. Happy to have you.
Thank you.
If you've all been kind of listening so far I haven't heard my doctor referred me to these classes. I hear friends, and I saw an advertisement, and that's one of the hopes we have of these classes, is that you will all go back, share this with your doctor, providers, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, and they will learn from you that there is another way than a pill for every ill, that food is medicine. And we're working on that. We're talking with the medical school here in Lebanon, one of them, We're trying to spread it actually throughout the country as best as we can for med students. And, you know, kind of teach them about the importance of these classes. Who else? David?
I'm under David's, we're sharing a telephone. My name's Diane.
Yep.
And David referred me. So, and I'm happy to be here.
Well,
we're sharing-
great.
Yeah, we're sharing a screen.
Happy to have you.
Hi, Charles. This is Kayeri.
Hey, Carrie.
And my cardiologist team did refer me. So I've been
Nice.
happy. I've been waiting for January 3rd to start and for the coursework to start, and I'm excited to be here.
So that surely makes us feel good that you have cardiology group that's sending you. That's one of the goals of these classes, to change how medicine is practiced. Who
Yeah,
else?
it's the cardiology group at River Bend.
Very good. We're thrilled. This could go on half the night, Scott.
Yeah, I'm ready to jump. I'm ready to get going, but if anyone else wants to introduce themselves before I get started. Tonight's a little more of a formal presentation. You'll notice we'll have classes sprinkled throughout that are open forum, and that's the best time for just lots of questions, and for the new people especially. But this week, and I know Charlie will have a little bit of time for questions in his class next week, but tonight I have a pretty full schedule for you guys. Lots to present to you. So I'll jump in as soon as you're ready.
So just before you get started, I want to say we have about 38 people who've come to the classes tonight so far. Our classes kind of dwindle down as the year progresses. People think they have had enough, whatever. We want to encourage you to talk with your friends or family, to bring them on, even if they're not attending a first class. There are going to be archive meetings that they can kind of catch up if they want to do that. And so invite whoever you like. The classes are free. And, you know, what happens is the classes generally dwindle down to about half size over time. So that's what I would encourage you to think about. And before you get started, Scott, I just wanted Stu and Sharon, they're such long-term members. One of my first class members from almost 10 years ago, just wanted them maybe to share a couple quick minutes of the benefits of attending these classes, and then you can carry on. So I know it's hard to do this in a short term, but maybe you could say a couple words. Stu, Sharon.
Muted, are they off?
Yeah, they're still muted. They're working on it. And if for some reason they can't figure out how to get unmuted, we can have them jump on one of the diabetes sessions.
Should I go for it?
Yeah, why don't you go for it? And then if they figure it out, they can come in toward the end. Okay?
All right, sounds good. Let me share my screen. All right. Is my volume good, Charlie?
Yep, it sounds good. I can see your slide just fine.
All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Scott Wagnon. I'm a physician assistant at Oregon Medical Group. I work internal medicine. I've been a physician assistant for 17 and a half years at this point. I just kind of wanted, before I get into kind of my nutrition and lifestyle medicine journey, I want to just share a little bit about myself. So I was born and raised in Eugene, Oregon, and I met my wife in college here, and we actually moved up to the Portland area when I went to paramedic school. And I was a paramedic for 10 years up in Portland before I decided to go to PA school because I had a lot of experience as a paramedic and I wanted to learn more medicine. So I went to PA school at OHSU in Portland. And we had two boys. We raised 2 boys up in the Portland area. And then when my youngest son graduated from high school, we decided to move back down to Eugene. And so we've been here for about a little over 6 years now, back down in Eugene. And so I just wanted to give you that little bit of a background before I talk more about my nutrition and lifestyle medicine journey. So this is where my story starts tonight. This was the summer of 2012. That's a picture of me. I'm on the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And I used to be a professional bicycle racer. I actually raced I went to Olympic trials in 1988. I raced on a Spanish team in 1990. So I was a professional bicycle racer. But at this point in 2012, I wasn't racing anymore, but I was doing a lot of long distance cycling, just kind of was really into physical challenges. And so in this year of 2012, I'd ridden my bicycle 7,000 miles that year. This particular trip here was me and a buddy of mine rode our bicycles from Eugene all the way to San Francisco in 6 days. So we were putting in 130-mile days and got down there in 6 days. And so I was into really kind of physical challenges, doing lots of riding. So I was in good physical condition. But what you may not know and may not be able to tell from this picture, I was 47 pounds heavier in this picture than I am now. Even though I was physically fit, I wasn't very healthy. I actually had irritable bowel syndrome symptoms every day. I had heartburn symptoms every day. I had high blood pressure. I had high cholesterol, and I had pre-diabetes. So my A1C, some of you that have diabetes or pre-diabetes or know someone with diabetes or pre-diabetes, my hemoglobin A1C was 6.2%, which 6.5% and above is diabetes. So I wasn't on any medications yet for any of these things, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, pre-diabetes. I was just, on those borderline numbers for all of these things, despite all that heavy exercise. And so, one of the blessings and curses I like to say about being a medical provider for so many years is that you kind of see your own future through your patients. And so, I have so many patients that have pre-diabetes and high, borderline blood pressure, borderline cholesterol. Maybe they're not on medication yet, but I see, oh yeah, I have lots of patients like that. And then eventually they get diabetes and heart disease and cancer, and they start to get on medications, and I kind of oversee their demise. I try to limit the damage being done by these conditions by prescribing medication and trying to help with lifestyle. But and Charlie will talk about this next week. In PA school and medical school, we don't get any training in diet or lifestyle. Just like, oh yeah, you should eat less, exercise more, those types of things. And so I knew what my future had in store for me based on my patients. So I was like, okay, it's not lack of exercise, and I have a pretty healthy lifestyle, so it's got to be what I'm eating. So that prompted me just not too long after this trip in the summer of 2012 to study nutrition. So I dove into nutrition textbooks and found the science and got into lifestyle medicine at a later date, but that was further down the road in the story. But as I studied nutrition, I realized, okay, I should be, eating a more whole food, plant-centered diet. So when I studied the literature, what it pointed me toward was a more plant-centered diet. And because I thought going in, well, there seems to be a lot of debate about what's the healthiest diet. I was kind of like everybody else, just like, oh, there's a big debate about it. But when I studied academic nutrition, what I realized that there really is not a big debate. The debates in the media and kind of different camps and different people that you might see on social media or on TV shows or the news or whatever. But when you look at academic nutrition throughout the world, it's really a pretty big consensus that it should be a predominantly plant-centered diet. So a diet based on whole plant foods, fruits, vegetables, beans, intact whole grains, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, and low in things like animal products, meat, dairy, eggs, oils, processed foods. And so I was like, okay, I'm not interested in being a vegan. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to move in the direction of a more whole food, plant-centered diet. And after doing that for a year, A year later, after this picture was taken, I had dropped 47 pounds. I dropped my cholesterol 100 points. I dropped my blood pressure like a rock. My irritable bowel syndrome went away. My heartburn went away. I felt amazing. And actually, in 2013, I only rode about 3,000 miles that year instead of 7,000 miles. So despite less exercise, I actually got healthy. And so it really emboldened me to continue to learn and to teach it to my patients. And a lot of my patients, suddenly patients with diabetes had diabetes for 20 years or were on insulin. Suddenly they didn't need the insulin anymore. I started having to take them off insulin. Patients with high blood pressure, I suddenly was having to take them off their blood pressure pills because their blood pressure is getting too low. So I started really seeing my patients get healthy, which just kind of, made me want to change more of my own diet. I had patients that were changing their diet faster than I was. And so that just kind of emboldened me to keep learning. And I eventually got board certified in lifestyle medicine through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So you'll learn much more about kind of the learning path I've been on over the last 10 years, actually, 10 years ago in December. And so I won't, go into it more depth right now. I just kind of wanted to give you a perspective, a little bit about me, kind of where I came from and how I learned about this and got into this. So first we want to talk about what we call the scope of the problem here. And I got some updated numbers here. A lot of you have heard a lot about these numbers, about what's the #1 killer is heart disease. So 697,000 people died from heart disease in the United States in 2020. There's no 2022 data. I couldn't find any yet through the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC. But I got some updated numbers for cancer. It's up to 609,000 people died from cancer, which is number two cause of death. That's in 2022. As far as diabetes, in 2022, 37.3 million people, which is 11.3% of the US population has diabetes. And then 96 million people, which is 38% of all adults, have pre-diabetes. So you can look from there, basically half of the population in the United States has either diabetes or pre-diabetes. So it's really an epidemic. And we have a whole class we'll talk about, a couple of classes on diabetes we'll get to in a few weeks. Heart disease alone costs $219 billion a year, which includes the cost of healthcare services, medicines, and lost productivity. In 2018, the total cost of diagnosed diabetes was $327 billion. And the total estimated healthcare costs of Americans every year is $3.4 trillion. And US employers spend $900 billion annually just on healthcare benefits. And illness-related lost productivity accounts for another $500 billion a year. So that's $1.4 trillion just in healthcare expenditure and lost productivity because of health issues. So it's obviously a big problem, a chronic disease problem. But next I want to talk about what health is and why is health important. If you look up the term health in the dictionary, the definition is lack of illness, which that's not such an exciting definition. It's not very positive. Just lack of illness. I wouldn't say that's thriving. That's just surviving. But I like this definition of health better. This is by Dr. Sidney Garfield, who's the founding physician for Kaiser Permanente. It says, remember, good health is see, I'm blocking it here. There we go. Remember, good health is a way to get more out of your life, more energy, more enjoyment, more potential, more purpose, more life. I like that definition much better. Next, we're going to talk about something called squaring the curve. So you like just want you to know I'm a really good artist here. This is my drawing. And I just want to explain what this squaring the curve means, because it's a really important concept. So we have on the y-axis, the up and down axis there, health. And so higher up on the y-axis going up, the better the health. And then on the x-axis down across the bottom, we have time. So on the bottom left corner, then that would be birth. Down over here, if you can see my cursor, this would be birth, and then time goes on. And then these X's mark time of death. I know this is a little bit of a morbid conversation here, but this is a really important concept. So when we're born over here, we have good health. So our goal then is to maintain good health throughout our lifespan. And then whether we, whenever we die, whether it's here or whether we die out here, if this is 80 years old or 90 or 100 or whatever our age is, we want to maintain good health, and then we'll just pass. And the actual natural human frame, if you actually look at throughout history, before we kind of westernized and modernized ourselves as a civilization, is the normal, what's a normal human experience for life and death is to be born, have maintained good health. And then one night we worked out in the field, we saw our family, our friends, we did everything we wanted to do that day, and we had good quality of life, and then we fall asleep and we just don't wake up. That's normal. That's actually a normal human experience. And we call that squaring the curve. So you come over like this, good health, and then we pass. But that's not what's happening, the vast majority of us in westernized countries. What's happening is we have, we're born with good health and we can maintain our good health for a while, but whether this downslope starts to happen at age 30 or 40 or 50 or 70, it's going to vary based on lots of different factors, genetic factors, lifestyle factors, maybe your zip code, you could say health disparities. That's a big topic as well, whole nother topic on that. But what's happening is we start to lose our health, whether this is the last 5 years of life or 10 years or 20 years of life, our health declines. And then whether we still die out here or we die back here, that's going to vary on lots of factors, whether you're getting good health care, maybe because if you're on medications and you have your heart failure under good control, maybe you can extend your life a little bit, but your quality of life is really taken a hit. And so what a lot of patients that I'll talk to, when I talk to them about changing their diet and lifestyle because they have chronic conditions or whatever, they're somewhere already down here on this slope here. And I have a lot of patients that tell me, Scott, if I can, I'm going to eat what I want and live the life I want. And if that means I die a little bit sooner, then so be it. And that's a fair statement and a fair attitude to have. But what a lot of patients and a lot of people don't think about is this downsloping line. It's like wherever you are, maybe ideally I can get to a patient when they're still up here to prevent chronic conditions and keep them up here on this line. But if usually most people are somewhere down on the downslope, and is this the quality of life that you wanted? Is this have you achieved your health goals? Are you traveling and seeing things you want to see and spending time with family and friends? And are you having the quality of life that you envisioned and want for yourself? Or are you still on this downsloping line and you're trying to get up? And so that's the thing that I want all of you to think about, because a lot of the purpose of tonight's class, this introduction, is to find your why. Something I'll say many times tonight is finding your why. So what's your why for change? And that's going to be different for every person in this room. We're all going to have different reasons for doing what we did. You heard what my why was. Well, I didn't want to get all those chronic conditions, even though I felt okay at that age, except for maybe my irritable bowel and heartburn. I felt okay. I was able to do the things I wanted to do, but I don't want to have a heart attack or a stroke or get cancer or all the things that I see my patients get every day. And so that was my why. And so throughout this talk tonight, I want you to be thinking about what your why is. And I want to tell you another really cute story. Someone I had that came to the classes. So I used to teach these classes live in the community for 2.5 years before Charlie and I switched these to online almost 3 years ago now. And she actually she had this printed out, and she had a stick figure here, and she had her arms pushing up on the line here, and she said, "Look, Scott, I'm squaring the curve." So she was changing her diet and lifestyle, and she was showing how she was pushing this line back up to here. And so I wanted to share that. That's exactly the whole point of coming to these classes, is to try to square that curve. Let's push that downsloping line back up if you're on the downslope, or maybe you're still here and you're still up here at good health and you want to keep yourself up here. So whether you're up here already or you're down here somewhere, our whole goal is to get back up here to good health, good quality of life. All right, now I want to show a video that kind of helps put this into a visual visual instead of just a boring graph.
What will your last 10 years look like? Will you be quick enough for a game of tag with your grandchild? Strong enough to embrace every moment? Will you grow old with vitality? Or get old with disease? It's time to decide. The average Canadian will spend their last 10 years in sickness. Change your future at makehealthlast.ca.
All right. So now I want to actually show you this 8-minute cartoon. It's a really, really good summary of kind of what, a little bit about lifestyle medicine, a little bit about one of our mentors, who's Dr. Michael Greger. And you're gonna, when you come to these classes, you're going to hear a lot of videos, see a lot of videos, and hear us talk a lot about the different studies that are on this website, nutritionfacts.org, nutritionfacts.org, and gives you, this will give you a little bit of background about Dr. Greger, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff in this, really impactful stuff. And of course, you can watch this as many times as you want because we record these classes. And also I have this particular video on the class website, which I'll be showing, since we have so many new people, I'll be showing a little bit about the class website tonight. And this is under the videos section on the class website. So you can watch this. There's a lot of information here, so you'll want to watch it a few times just to be able to get it all in. But I want to, show you this here.
It all started with my grandma. I was just a kid when the doctor sent my grandma home in a wheelchair to die. Diagnosed with end-stage heart disease, she already had so many bypass operations that the surgeons essentially ran out of plumbing. Confined to a wheelchair, crushing chest pain, her doctors told her there was nothing more they could do. Her life was over at age 65. But then she heard about Nathan Pritikin, one of our early lifestyle medicine pioneers, and what happened next was documented in Pritikin's biography. He talks about Frances Greger, my grandma. It was a live-in program where everyone was placed on a plant-based diet and started on a graded exercise regimen. They wheeled her in and she walked out. In a few weeks, she was walking 10 miles a day, went on to live another 31 years till age 96 to continue to enjoy her 6 grandchildren, including me. Her miraculous recovery not only inspired one of those grandkids to pursue a career in medicine, but granted her enough healthy years to see him graduate from medical school. So it's really all thanks to her. During medical training, I was shocked to find out that this whole body of evidence on reversing chronic disease with lifestyle changes, opening up arteries without drugs, without surgery, was being largely ignored by mainstream medicine. Wait a second, if effectively the cure to our #1 killer could get lost down some rabbit hole and ignored, what else might there be buried in the medical literature that could help my patients? I made it my life's mission to find out. That's what led me to start nutritionfacts.org, and that's what led me to write the book, How Not to Die. Surveys show people wildly overestimate the power of pills and procedures to keep them healthy. For example, patients believe cholesterol-lowering statin drugs are about 20 times more effective than they actually are in preventing heart attacks. No wonder most people continue to rely on drugs to save them. But our leading killers aren't caused by drug deficiencies. The dirty little secret is that most people surveyed said they would not be willing to take many of these drugs if they knew how little benefit these products actually offered. Whereas cleaning up our diets is not only safer and cheaper, but can be more effective in preventing, arresting, and reversing some of our leading causes of death because you're treating the actual cause of the disease. Each year, the CDC compiles the 15 leading causes of death. And so I have a chapter on each: how not to die from heart disease, how not to die from lung disease, how not to die from brain diseases, digestive cancers, infections, diabetes, high blood pressure, liver diseases, blood cancers, kidney disease, breast cancer, suicidal depression, prostate cancer, Parkinson's disease, and how not to die from so-called iatrogenic causes, which is essentially death by doctor. That's the first half of the book, and the good news is that we have tremendous power over our health, destiny, and longevity. The vast majority of premature death and disability is preventable with a plant-based diet and other healthy lifestyle behaviors. I didn't want to just write a reference book, though. Yes, there's thousands of citations to peer-reviewed scientific papers, but I also wanted it to be a practical guide on translating this mountain of evidence into day-to-day decisions. And so that's what became the second half of the book. First, I started out with a traffic light system to classify everything to red light, yellow light, and green light foods. Though there are exceptions, I talk about the best available balance of evidence suggests the healthiest diet is one that minimizes the intake of meat, eggs, dairy, and processed junk, and maximizes the intake of fruits, vegetables, beans, split peas, chickpeas, lentils, legumes in general, whole grains, nuts and seeds, mushrooms, herbs and spices, basically real food that grows out of the ground. These are our healthiest choices. Some foods, though, have particular medicinal qualities, and so I then center my recommendations around a daily dozen checklist of all the things I try to fit into my daily routine. So, for example, I recommend a quarter teaspoon of the spice turmeric a day, a tablespoon of ground flax seeds, berries every day, greens every day. I talk about the healthiest beverages, the healthiest sweeteners, how much exercise to get. The whole daily dozen list with recommended serving sizes is available as free apps for both Android and iPhone. Just search for Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. There's only one diet that's ever been proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients, this plant-based diet. If that's all a plant-based diet could do, reverse the number one killer of men and women, shouldn't that be the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that it can also be effective in treating, arresting, and reversing other leading killers like high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes would seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming. Most deaths in the United States are preventable and related to nutrition. According to the most rigorous analysis of risk factors ever published, the Global Burden of Disease study funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the number one cause of death in the United States is our diet. The number one cause of disability is our diet, which is now bumped tobacco smoking to number two. Smoking not only kills about 500,000 Americans every year, whereas our diet kills hundreds of thousands more. So obviously, nutrition is the number one thing taught in medical school, right? The number one thing your doctor talks to you about at every visit, right? How could there be such a disconnect between the science and the practice of medicine? Doctors have a severe nutrition deficiency in education. Most doctors just never taught about the impact health and nutrition can have in the course of illness, and so they graduate without this powerful tool in their medical toolbox. There are also institutional barriers such as time constraints and lack of reimbursement. In general, doctors aren't paid for counseling people on how to take better care of themselves. Of course, the drug companies also play a role in influencing medical education and practice. Ask your doctor when's the last time they were taken out to dinner by Big Broccoli. Probably been a while. It's like smoking in the 50s. We already had decades of science linking smoking with lung cancer, but it was largely ignored because smoking was normal. Most doctors smoked. The average per capita cigarette consumption was 4,000 cigarettes a year, meaning the average American smoked a half pack a day. The American Medical Association was reassuring everyone that smoking in moderation was just fine. There's the same disconnect between the science and public policy. It took more than 25 years and 7,000 studies before the first Surgeon General report against smoking came out in the 60s. You think maybe after the first 6,000 studies, they could have given people a little heads up or something? Powerful industry. And today's meat, sugar, dairy, salt, egg, and processed food industries are using the same tobacco industry tactics to try to twist the science and confuse the public until the system changes. We have to take personal responsibility for our own health, for our family's health. We can't wait until society catches up to the science again, because it's a matter of life and death.
Okay. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what lifestyle medicine is. And then I'll show you a Dr. Greger video that talks about lifestyle medicine. So lifestyle medicine, by definition through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, is the evidence-based use of therapeutic lifestyle approaches to prevent, treat, and oftentimes reverse chronic disease. And there's 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine officially. So we have nutrition, which is defined as a predominantly whole food plant-based diet. And it's about, through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, who just looks at the science and it has a consensus, it's about 90 to 95% whole food plant-based is how they define it. So it's plant predominant, plant strong, however you want to look at it. Unprocessed whole plant foods for the vast majority of what you eat. Exercise, so getting regular physical activity, adequate sleep, and then stress management, through meditation and mindfulness and other factors, strategies, and having strong social connections, and then avoiding risky substances like tobacco, alcohol, drugs, and prescription medications as well. Those you try to only use those when you need to. So you work on all these 6 pillars, and then if you still need to use certain medications, diabetes medications, blood pressure medications, whatever, then you can still utilize those, but you do all these other things first and then only use those if you absolutely have to. So that's the official what lifestyle medicine is in the 6 pillars. So let's watch this video about a little bit more about lifestyle medicine. And then we'll take a little break, and I want to introduce a couple other people in the class, and we'll maybe take a little break for a few questions before I kind of go into all the resources on the website that I want to go through tonight. Let's watch this.
Though I was trained as a general practitioner, my chosen specialty is lifestyle medicine. Yes, most of the reasons people go to see their doctors is for diseases that could have been prevented, but lifestyle medicine is not just about preventing chronic diseases, but also about treating them. And not just treating the disease, it's treating the causes of disease. If people just did 4 simple things: not smoking, exercising half-hour a day, eating a diet that emphasizes whole plant foods, and not becoming obese, that may prevent most cases of diabetes and heart attacks, half of strokes, and a third of cancers. Even modest changes may be more effective in reducing cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, heart failure, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and all-cause mortality than almost any other medical intervention. The key differences between conventional medicine and lifestyle medicine is, instead of just treating risk factors, we treat the underlying causes of disease, as described in this landmark editorial. See, typically doctors treat risk factors for disease, such as giving a lifetime's worth of medications to lower high blood pressure, elevated blood sugar, high cholesterol. But think about it. I mean, high blood pressure is just a symptom of diseased dysfunctional arteries. Yes, you can artificially lower blood pressure with drugs, but that's not treating the underlying cause, which often comes down to things like diet and exercise, the penicillin of lifestyle medicine. And disregarding the underlying cause and treating only risk factors is somewhat like mopping up the floor around an overflowing sink instead of just turning off the faucet, which is why medications usually have to be taken for a lifetime. If a floor is flooded as a result of a dripping tap, it is of little use to mop up around the floor unless the tap is turned off. The water from the tap represents the cost of disease. The flooded floor, the diseases filling up our hospital beds. Yet medical students learn far more about methods of floor mopping than about turning off taps. And doctors who are specialists in mops and brushes can earn infinitely more money than those dedicated to shutting off taps. And the drug companies are more than happy to sell rolls of paper towel so patients can buy a new roll every day for the rest of their lives. Paraphrasing Ogden and Nash, modern medicine is making great progress, but just headed in the wrong direction. Preventive medicine is, frankly, bad for business. When the underlying lifestyle causes are addressed, patients often are able to stop taking medication or avoid surgery. We spend billions cracking people's chests open, but only rarely does it actually prolong anyone's life. In contrast, how about wiping out at least 90% of heart disease? Think about it. Heart disease accounts for more premature deaths than any other illness and is almost completely preventable simply by changing diet and lifestyle. And those same changes can prevent or reverse many other chronic diseases as well, the same dietary changes. So why don't more doctors do it? Well, one reason is doctors don't get paid to do it. Right? For no one profits from lifestyle medicine, so it's not part of medical education or practice. Presently, physicians lack training and financial incentives, so they continue to do what they know how to do, prescribe medication and perform surgery. After Dean Ornish proved you could reverse our #1 cause of death, heart disease, open up arteries without drugs, without surgery, just with a plant-based diet and other healthy lifestyle changes. He thought that his studies would have a meaningful effect on the practice of mainstream cardiology. After all, a cure for our #1 killer? But he admits he was mistaken. Physician reimbursement, he realized, is a much more powerful determinant of medical practice than research. Reimbursement more than research. Salary over science. Wealth versus health. Not a very flattering portrayal of the healing profession, but hey, if doctors won't do it without getting paid, let's get them paid. So Dr. Ornish went to Washington, arguing that, look, if we train and pay for doctors to learn how to help patients address the real cause of disease with lifestyle medicine, not just treat disease risk factors, we could save trillions. And that's just talking heart disease, diabetes, prostate, and breast cancer. The Take Back Your Health Act was introduced in the US Senate to induce doctors to learn and practice lifestyle medicine, not only because it works better, but here's the critical factor: physicians will be paid to do it. The bill died, just like the millions of Americans will continue to do with reversible chronic diseases.
That was back in 2009. I don't know if you guys noticed it was Ron Wyden, actually. Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon was the co-author on that legislation. But I wanted to go over some positive things that have happened since 2009 when it comes to lifestyle medicine and the progress we're making in the medical profession. So Dean Ornish, just since that talked a lot about Dean Ornish with his reversing heart disease with his program. Actually, it's termed intensive cardiac rehab. And so a lot of you may be already familiar with cardiac rehab, which is, after you've had a bypass or a stent, you get cardiac rehab education. So it's nutrition, exercise, and things like that. And so Dean Ornish's program, which utilizes lifestyle medicine, so a whole food, plant-based diet and meditation and exercise, that's actually now covered by Medicare. It took 16 years for him to get it covered through Medicare. So it took a long time, but it finally is covered. And so that's good news. And so you can get his cardiac rehab classes throughout the country now. He's doing them online as well now because of COVID. So one of the benefits of COVID. So that's one thing that's going in the right direction. Also, the work of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, who I'm board certified through their ACLM, they're actually have written board questions. So they have board questions that they're getting inserted into the medical boards. And so as that is occurring, then medical schools are going to start teaching some lifestyle medicine, because the whole goal of medical schools is to help their students pass the medical boards. And because that makes them look really good, having high passing rates and things like that. So having these board questions on the medical boards for diet and lifestyle related issues, that's helping. And then another thing is Wayne State University, which is in Detroit, Michigan, actually is the first medical school in the country that has a whole lifestyle medicine program in their medical school. So if you graduate medical school there, you'll be educated on this lifestyle medicine, which we're talking about. So that's another thing. And then there's a culinary medicine is another developing field in medical schools. So what culinary medicine is basically teaching medical students on how to cook healthy diets, cook healthy foods, and then they can teach, in turn, teach their patients about nutrition and cooking healthy foods as well. So that's a whole program that's going. Another is Dr. Clapper, who's spoken at Charlie's medical school talks. He'll talk a little bit about that at some point going forward. And he's got a whole program and a website called Moving Medicine Forward, Dr. Michael Clapper. And he has been, prior to the pandemic, he was lecturing to medical schools throughout the world in person. He's been doing some virtually now because of post-COVID. But his whole goal is to educate medical students about the power of food as medicine, nutrition, and lifestyle medicine. So that's really been impactful. And then another is the Plantrition Project, who is headed by Dr. Scott Stoll, who just spoke at Charlie's at the medical school that Charlie teaches at just this past month, and that's up on the class website, the nutrition and medicine program. So he's the president of the Plantrition Project, and they are starting something called Plantrition University. And that is all designed to educate medical students and doctors, any medical provider actually, including medical students about nutrition and lifestyle medicine. So we're making lots and lots of progress. There are lifestyle medicine clinics around. So, you know, watching just that last video, you might think, oh gosh, we have a long way to go. And we still do, but we've been making lots of progress since 2009. So I wanted to kind of leave you on a positive note with that. So before I take some questions and I dive into the resources I want to go through with you guys here tonight about how to do this and get information, I want to introduce. I don't think Charlie ever actually introduced himself, and then if Eric Colgrove's still around, I wanted him to introduce himself as well, since this is the first class and we have so many new people. And Charlie will be doing his full introduction class next week, so you'll hear more of his story then. But I just wanted him to maybe say a few words and introduce himself, and then Dr. Eric Colgrove as well, if he's comfortable saying a few words about how he got into this and introducing himself as well. So Charlie, you want to start?
Sure. So if you could take that slide down, I'm kind of curious to see some people in the audience. And the first question that I have for you is, why do you eat what you eat? You know, I never asked myself that question until about 11 years ago when I changed my life. Sanjay Gupta changed my life. And I'll tell you that story next time that we meet. But I'm asking you to give it some serious thought. What is it that really, how do you understand what is healthy food choices and what are unhealthy food choices? The next thing I want you to think about is this. Have you been confused about what is healthy nutrition and what is unhealthy? And if you're not confused, I'd be totally surprised. On one hand, you have learned that eating fresh or eating fruits and vegetables is a healthy thing to do. Yes? Anybody? Raise your hand. Is it healthy? Yes. On the other hand, what do you learn about carbohydrates? They're not healthy for you, right? Or wrong? Eat carbohydrates, don't eat carbohydrates. Most of us have learned don't eat carbohydrates. Well, what are fruit and vegetables? And if fruit and vegetables are complex carbohydrates, how are we supposed to eat healthy? So I want you to kind of contemplate. These are some of the questions that we will kind of go over with you as this series goes on. And some of you may be disappointed. You may be disappointed to learn that these sessions are not going to be like the advertisements that you receive on your cell phone or in other ads. Like, here's how you get your health. just pay this amount for this supplement or for this bit of information. These classes are totally free. Scott's going to share with you some of the resources that we use, and it really can make a huge difference in your life. And unfortunately, for those of you who were looking for having to buy something, it's not going to happen. We're not selling you anything. We're sharing the information that we learned that led us on a path to health, just like Scott's path to health, where he lost that weight, changed his life, and is sharing with you now. Now, I want to end by saying one last thing. I was really ticked off at 60 Minutes. CBS did a special 60 Minutes. If anybody see that section last night or the night before on obesity? And what was their take? They did a disservice to our population. They didn't even bring in, I mean, I love 60 Minutes. I've watched it every year for, I don't know, 40, 50 years already. Every week I watch that. And, I really am inspired by what the work they do, but they made a mistake. They tried to pin obesity on just our genes. And if you pin your health on your genetic makeup, what does that lead to? It leads to another pill for every ill. And the pill they came up with was just a mild $1,300 a month for those of you who could afford that. I was really ticked off and had to write them a letter of complaint. And I'm going to leave you with that. I just wanted to give you a little flavor of what you might anticipate hearing next week. So Eric, carry on. If you're here.
He's still here. He was here earlier, but
maybe he had to go.
Maybe he had to go. So I'll let him, maybe he'll be here next week, but he's a pediatrician at Oregon Medical Group, and he's been taking these classes, and he's very knowledgeable about nutrition and lifestyle medicine now himself, and he's another resource on the website. He's one of the three names. It's me, Charlie Ross, and Eric Colgrove on the website, and I'll jump into that. But anyone have any questions before I jump in? Maybe just a couple quick ones, because I want to get through these materials so you kind of have a starting point of where to go from here. But any burning question?
Well, maybe they will save it for the end of the session or next week. So carry on.
All right, let me share my screen again here. Here's the class website. There we go. And so for those of you who are new, if you're not on the weekly newsletter, you can sign up here. So this is just livelifestylemedicine.com. So I'm sure many of you already have this bookmarked, or you know about this website. And if you want to just get a full tour of the website, just scroll down to the website tutorial right here and just click on this and watch. It's a recording I did of giving you a full tour of where everything is on this website. So I won't give you a full tour of it now, because you can do that just watching it anytime you want to. But I want to go through a list of some things I wanted to show you tonight. Let's go here to resources tab. And we'll go down here to handouts from classes. Click on that. And the first thing I wanted to show is the why for change. So I have a handout on what is your why for lifestyle change. So you can click on that. And it's just a handout of questions you can ask yourself, and having motivations to change. And you can write your answers to these questions on the back. You can print this out or just have it up on your computer and write these answers to these questions. You don't have to ever share these with anyone in class or with Charlie and I. It's just for you personally. And why is health important to you? And these are the things you want to be thinking about when you're thinking about making a change, whether you're just thinking about it or you're or you're just kind of, or you're already doing this and you're having a hard time trying to keep motivated. These are all things that are could be really important for long-term success. So go through that. And then let me go back. And then the next thing I want to show is what is a whole food plant-based diet? And that is, let's see, right here, let's see. Here it is. What is a whole food plant-based diet? So you can click on that. And it's through Forks Over Knives, and you can also just download it as a PDF and print it, or you can just read it here. And this is just kind of a summary of what is included, what is a whole food plant-based diet, just definition of what it is. So that's important just to take a look at that. And then the next thing I want to show is the McDougall color picture book. We go back out to the main resources tab here. It's the only thing that's outside of that I wanted to show. Dr. McDougall is another one of our mentors, Charlie and I's, and he's also spoken at the medical school nutrition and medicine conference. And this is just a very visual, blunt way to look at things. And if you ever get confused about what should I eat, what should I not eat, because I have patients to just say, Scott, just tell me what I should eat and what I shouldn't eat. Just yes or no, this food, that food, yes, no, yes, no. They want it to be really straightforward. And this is a great handout for that, the McDougall color picture book. He actually calls it food poisoning. So eating the red light foods, the foods you should say no to because they're causing illness, food poisoning. So you can just scroll through this. It's a great picture of what is food and what's not food, what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, some of the health problems. So as you scroll further down, you'll see all the different things to eat and what not to eat. So it's a really simple way to look at it. Obviously, here's all the things not to eat, and we'll get to the things that to eat, and it defines what starches are and what things you should eat. And it has a whole list of all those, just examples of the foods to eat and foods not to eat. So that's a really cool handout. And then this out. And that's from classes. Okay, so number 4. So you got the picture book, evidence-based eating guide is the next thing I want to show you right here. This is from Dr. Greger, and you can actually also get this as a free app on your cell phone, the Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. So if whether you have an Android or an iPhone, you can just go to the App Store and just search Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, and you can download this on your cell phone. But this is a paper version of Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen that you can download here or print out if you'd like. And it's all spelled out here. So this is another really great resource. It's all here on the website. And he calls it dining by traffic light, red light, yellow light, green light. And his yellow light and red, yellow, and green light is slightly different than the handout I'm going to show you here in a minute. Because I have a traffic light handout, but this is a kind of a slightly different take on it, but essentially all the same or otherwise. Whole food plant-based foods are all on the green light essentially. And then it talks about the app on your cell phone if you want to get that. But this is just for those of you who maybe aren't comfortable with technology, you can just print this out if you'd like. And it's Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen in paper form. So that's a good resource. And then next I want to show you, my traffic light handout. Let's go back to here. And we'll go to traffic light handout right here. And this one's just slightly different. You'll notice like in Dr. Greger's yellow light foods, he has unprocessed animal products in the yellow light because they're not processed foods. So like say, chicken or fish or the elk or venison or something would be considered a yellow light food in his, but any animal products are considered red light in here. But you'll see these percentages here on green, yellow, and red light foods, and where these come from. And what I use this handout a lot with my patients at work is this comes from the blue zones. I don't know if anyone's heard of the blue zones. So the blue zones are 5 places on Earth that have the highest percentage of people that are 100 years old, the centenarian people. And there's 5 of them. There's Sardinia, Italy, Icaria, Greece, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, Okinawa, Japan, and Loma Linda, California. So those are the 5 blue zones. And so they have the highest percentage of people that live to 100. They also have some of the lowest rates of things like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, dementia. So they're not only long lived, but they're the healthy populations. And this is the way they've been eating their entire lives. And it's 80% green light, 5 to 10% of their calories come from yellow light, and less than 5 to 10% of their calories come from red light. And the red light foods are your animal products, so your meat, your cheeses, your eggs, your dairy products, your added oils, and your processed foods. So refined sugars and flours and other pastries, cookies, what we call calorie rich and processed foods, crap foods, calorie rich and processed. So though they only get about 5 to 10% of their calories from these foods, and it does tend to be a little bit of fish, a little bit of chicken, some olive oil, and then a little bit of low-fat dairy, and some eggs. That's kind of the extent of the red light foods the blue zone people eat. The 80% of their foods come from exactly what we're talking about in these classes. To eat a whole, unprocessed, whole plant foods is the green light, and then yellow light foods are, still healthy foods. They're minimally processed, or they're a little bit higher in fat and calories. So they get the yellow light because, well, you don't want to go too crazy on them because you're trying to lose weight, or if you're trying to reverse diabetes, and even heart disease, you might want to limit these foods for a while until you kind of reverse your chronic conditions. And something that, like, Charlie will say a lot of times in his talks is, yeah, the blue zones, they've been eating this way their entire lives, but a lot of the patients that we see in clinic or come to these classes, they've already got one foot in the grave and one foot on the banana peel. And so they're, to prevent a disease takes much less strict diet and lifestyle change to prevent a disease. But once you already have heart disease or diabetes, you're already on medications, you already have heart failure, kidney disease, you have a lot of these health problems. You kind of need to we try to teach people how to do this 100%, just so that you have the opportunity to get the best results. But yeah, whether you choose to still eat some yellow light foods and some red light foods, that's totally up to you. We're not, like Charlie said, we're not policemen. We're not going to judge anybody. You can eat what you want. We're just trying to teach people how to eat a 100% whole food plant-based diet. Try to keep to the green and the yellow light foods to a minimum, mostly green light foods, and try to avoid the red light foods. But just to kind of go back to what Dr. Greger's, yellow light foods, he does have some, like I said, some unprocessed animal products in his yellow light, because yeah, if you look at the science throughout the world, it is like American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which I mentioned earlier, it is 90 to 95% whole food plant-based diet. So it's, it doesn't mean you have to become a vegan and not ever eat meat, but we'll be sharing the science with you as to the reasons why we should choose more whole plant foods as opposed to animal products and processed foods. What are all the scientific reasons for that? What are some of the mechanisms as to why we get our health back when we go more to the green light foods as opposed to eating the red light foods? So I just wanted to kind of go over because you might see you'll notice that if you study this and study Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen and his traffic light system on that hand that I showed earlier. And then the next handout I want to go over, and we've only got a couple more to go here, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions and stuff about any of the resources and things, is my meal building basics handout. So let me get to that. And this is a handout I created. Here it is, meal building basics, that I really struggled at first. So one of the things I didn't share with you guys at the beginning was, when I changed my diet back in at the end of 2012, my wife wasn't interested. She was like, no, to her credit, I'd been on tons of diets. She'd been on tons of diets, and to her, this is just my next thing, and she wasn't interested. So I really struggled, because what I learned when I started cooking and trying to follow recipes and stuff is, one, I didn't know very much about food, and two, I wasn't a very good cook, and still not that great of a cook. My wife's much better, but anyway, I really kind of struggled when I was diving into cookbooks and trying to make recipes, because I just didn't really have a lot of the basic skills on cooking. And so if somebody would have given me this handout back then, this would have been really helpful. And what the purpose of this handout is just, you're not even really having to make a recipe. You're not really having to cook anything necessarily for the most part. It's just, okay, what's a whole food plant-based meal look like? What's the most simple way to look at this? And this first page is just basically meal building basics, starting with a starch and then adding vegetables. And so I'll go into some examples down further in this handout, but this first section is just starting with a starch, adding vegetables, and then this talks to you about how to saute without oil. So how to use like vegetable broth or vegetable stock or wine or beer, or something like, or just water to saute your vegetables, because you saw there on the traffic light handout, oil is a highly processed food. It's full of calories. It doesn't have any nutrient value. It's actually going to make it hard to reverse heart disease and diabetes and lose weight, because it's just a complete 100% fat, highly processed food with no nutrient value. And so you want to avoid the oil. And so this kind of covers that, how to saute vegetables without using oil. And you can also go on YouTube and get demonstrations of how to water saute or saute with vegetable broth or vegetable stock. So that's this section here. And then this is just examples. This next page then is just examples of breakfast, lunches, and dinners with just that theme of starting with a starch. So starches are our whole plant foods as well. So starches are things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, corn, squash. Those are all your starchy vegetables. And even you could consider beans as a starch. You can consider like whole grains, and tacked whole grains is like a starch, because really what a starch is it's a storage organ of a plant. So all of these whole plant starches, they're all whole plant foods. And they're very filling and satisfying, because you can't live on just salads. You can't just live on non-starchy vegetables. So you really need to start with a starch as your base, because as you're cutting out a lot of these red light foods, if you're not eating meat and dairy and processed foods, that's cutting out a lot of calories. And so you can't replace all those calories with just spinach and leafy greens and non-starchy vegetables. You need a lot of those, and we recommend it, but you're never going to be full for very long if you're not including starchy vegetables. So you'll see the theme in all of these examples of breakfast, lunches, and dinners here is that you're starting with a starch and then you're adding vegetables to that. And so I won't go too much in detail, but there's oatmeal here as an example, and then you're adding nuts and seeds and raisins and blueberries and things like that to your oatmeal, because your oatmeal is your starch, and then you're adding some fruit to it. That's just kind of an example of breakfast. But lunch and dinner here, you can see Mexican theme, Italian theme, Asian theme, Northern European or Irish theme. You can kind of envision what is your starch in each of these. So in Mexican theme, your starches are going to be your beans and your rice, right? That's going to be what mostly fills you up. But then you're going to, whether you're doing a burrito bowl or a taco or a burrito, you're going to be sauteing your onions and peppers, and you're adding salsa and lettuce and red sauce and sour. There's a tofu sour cream recipe you can get really easily. And so you can see, okay, you have your starch, and then you're adding vegetables. So same with Italian theme, your pasta is your starch. And you want to do like a whole grain pasta, whole wheat pasta, or there's red lentil pasta, quinoa pasta. There's all kinds of pastas out there. And then instead of like a meat sauce or an Alfredo sauce, you're going to do a tomato-based marinara sauce. And then you'll add, saute up your onions and peppers and mushrooms and garlic and spinach, zucchini, and then maybe serve it also with a side of steamed vegetables. And so you can kind of see here, we're starting with a starch. I guess we're kind of just going through it. Asian theme just is your rice, right? Rice or noodles. There's your starch. That's by definition your starch. That's what's going to fill you up. And then you're going to saute all kinds of vegetables and put it in there, whether it's a curry or an Asian stir fry, Thai stir fry, or whatever it is you like. Then you're adding your vegetables to that starch. And then Northern European Ireland, obviously your potato is your starch, right? So Yukon Gold potatoes, red potatoes, sweet potatoes, those are all superior to say a russet, white russet, just because there's a lot more fiber in the waxy potatoes like the Yukon Golds or the Reds or the Sweets or the Yams. Those are a little bit higher in fiber, have more of this resistant starch, and which acts more like fiber. And so fiber is the thing we really want to hit home. We have a whole class dedicated to fiber later on that Charlie teaches. But and then you can dump whatever you want on top of that potato. You know, stir fry veggies, salsa, beans, leftover vegetable soup. Just so that can be a really easy meal. So you can see here, you could envision what this looks like without even opening up a cookbook, right? You can just, okay, here's my starches, add my vegetables. And so this is just, I like to go over this handout because it just kind of gives you a visual of what this can look like. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. You know, you can throw a sweet potato in the microwave and then open up a dollar can of beans, dump a half a can of dollar canned beans onto your potato, add some salsa, some red sauce, and the tofu sour cream, which again, there's a recipe in the Forks Over Knives cookbook for that. Super, super simple. And that's like your sour cream on there. It's made from tofu, so there's no dairy. And there you go, that's a meal. So that's how simple it can be. And yeah, if you just ate those examples all the time, maybe it gets boring and you want to get some, you know, I have like 15 whole food plant-based cookbooks in my house. And you know, we probably still eat the same 10 to 15 different meals all the time and occasionally put in a new one. But that's kind of the way most of us eat, no matter what kind of diet we eat. We kind of have our favorite recipes and foods and stuff like that. So just kind of showing you how simple this can be. And then the last thing I want to go over, that's 6 and then 7. I want to go over plant-based quick start guide. Get this down here. And this is not on the website because this is copyrighted. This is through the Plantrition Project, which I mentioned earlier in the class. That's doing a lot of great work on the Plantrition University. So if any of you want this, all you have to do is email me, and I can put my email in the chat once I stop sharing my screen. It's also on the class website. Anyone that wants a copy of this, just email me directly. You know, don't put your email in the chat or anything because I won't be able to see all those. Just email me directly and say, hey, Scott, yeah, can I get this plant-based quick start guide? And so this is a 40-page document, and it's so helpful. So I won't go through all of it here today, but just it's something to read through. If you get it, if you want to ask me for it, if you want a copy of it. And it's just basically goes through, I'll just quickly go through kind of what it has in it so you have an idea. So it just talks about, the standard American diet and what it consists of and why it's not so good for our health. And then it talks about what is a whole food plant-based diet. And then it gives you the foods and the groups of foods to eat more of and the foods to eliminate or limit. And then has a little bit about plant-based kids. So for people with children or babies, gives you a little bit of information there. And also for those of you that do have children or infants, there's also a pediatric version of this exact same document. I have that as well. So for those of you who want the pediatric version, just email me the same and say, yeah, can I get the pediatric version? Or you can get both versions, whatever you want. And it has a lot of specific information for pediatrics and families and infants. And then it kind of goes over some of the myths, the protein myth. What about soy? What about some other nutrients like calcium? What about dairy? What about iron, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B12, staying hydrated? How to incorporate whole plant foods into your daily routine, gives you tips on that. How to build plant-based meals, what to stock your pantry with. So it's a lot of really great information in here. Meal planning and grocery shopping, a little section on organic. And so like the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. So it gives you the list of the foods, the Dirty Dozen are the 12 foods that would be more important to buy organic if you're going to spend a little more money on organic. And then the Clean 15 are the ones that are not as important to buy organic, and you could save some money on those. And it has to do with, pesticides that are used and how much is absorbed into the food itself. And so that's a nice tips on that there. And then there's plant-based cooking tips and tricks, ingredient swaps. So what are you going to use instead of milk and cream and butter and eggs and cheese? And then how to make it family friendly, plant-based on a budget, how to make it really cheap. It's actually, you're going to realize if you're doing this the right way, not buying processed vegan foods, which are very expensive, and eating out, which is very expensive. If you're eating the way I talked about in my meal building basics handout, just eating starches, fruits, and vegetables, whole plant foods, it's going to save tons of money at the grocery store. It's really, really cheap to eat this way. And then dining out on plant-based diets, it kind of gives you some tips on things you can order at different types of restaurants for those times that you might need to eat out. And then there's traveling, how to deal with traveling situations and social situations. I actually have a whole handout, article and handout on the class website about much more robust about tips for traveling as well. But this gives you some basic information. And then it talks about the healthcare system, how this is good for the healthcare system, how this is good for the environment. So you can read through the section on environment, and then it has the references. So I know I went through that fast, but if any of you want that, just send me an email and I'll get it to you. All right, so I'll take a breath here and stop sharing my screen.
So Scott, while you're taking a breath, maybe we could have Lisa Chick briefly review her involvement with the class, with Facebook and book club and counseling. If you could do that, Lisa, that would be great. She's our med student who's been working with us.
Perfect, yeah.
And then you can look in the chat. You have a few questions you may want to address.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa. I am a third-year student, osteopathic medical student in Pomona, California. And I've been working with Dr. Ross and Scott for probably like over a year now, 2 years.
2 years.
And I feel very fortunate because, like they mentioned earlier, nutrition is not really a huge part of our curriculum yet. But I feel very fortunate to have been learning about it the past several years and really be able to incorporate it myself. And I started being plant-based in probably about close to 10 years ago now, actually. And I was pretty young back then. It was kind of based off of nothing. I just decided to try it. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized how good it was for the environment and for me as well, because I have lupus, and it was a big part in me recovering from that too. So now I'm here and I am offering free health coaching for anyone in the class who would like an extra support or more one-on-one help. And of course it's free. So I'll leave my email address and contact information in the chat. And then we also have a Facebook group. So that's for anyone who would like to just have another support, ask questions, post recipes, whatever you like. It's very casual. And then new this year, I really wanted to start a book club. So we're going to get that going. And we are reading the Mayo Clinic Guide to Stress-Free Living by Dr. Amit Sood. So that's very exciting for me. And I think we have close to 25 people now. So if you're interested in that, you can also email me. And then I think that's it.
Let me tell you, a lot of people have really gained from interacting with Lisa. She's helped a number of people who were just kind of struggling. They kind of got the basics, but they were just feeling like they had blocks in their ability to make that transition. So thank you, Lisa, for all you've done. The Facebook that she started is up to over 300 people now in that group. So kudos to you for leading the charge in the medical profession to promote this information. Scott, carry on with whatever you need to do.
Yeah, there's a couple questions in the chat. So one, going back to, when I lost all that weight and got healthy, it was, even when I was exercising heavily, I was for probably during my 30s, my 20s and my 30s. So I was racing in my 20s, still, cycling a lot in my 30s, running as well. I was able to, I was able to outrun my fork, so to speak, in those days. So I guess I had youth on my side, and I was eating a decent diet. I was eating, I would say, healthier than the standard American diet, but I was still eating some processed foods, some fast food and stuff as well in my 30s. But I wasn't having any of the health problems then. I was having irritable bowel syndrome and some heartburn then, but I wasn't having high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or pre-diabetes. Then I got into my early 40s and I was no longer able to outrun my fork anymore. And again, that's different for everybody, genetics and lots of other factors. But so even though I was still eating pretty healthy, the same as I was in my 30s, now it was catching up to me and I wasn't able to outrun my fork any longer. So that's when I knew I had to change my diet, study nutrition, and actually learn about the science of nutrition and make the changes. And so that was one question. The other question in there was about the traffic light handout, and the percentages there, that's percentage of calories eaten. So if you think about 5 to 10%, only 5 to 10% of the blue zones, so the people in the blue zones, only 5 to 10% of their calories were coming from red light foods. And since most of the red light foods, they weren't really eating very many processed foods, which are the highest in calories. So things like, say, chicken and fish, they're about 700 or 800 calories per pound. And so it ends up being, if only 5 to 10% of your calories are coming from those red light foods, if they're processed foods, then if there's any processed foods in there, it's going to be such a small amount, which is, sometimes, it can be hard for somebody to try to teach somebody that's used to the standard American diet to only get 5 to 10% of their calories from meat or dairy or eggs or oils or processed foods. It's going to be so small that it's not going to, it's almost like a flavoring. It's a side dish. It's a condiment. It's a special occasion. That's really what it comes down to. What you're eating throughout the day is just whole plant foods. It's just, if you're gonna, I'm gonna put a little, fish sauce on this for flavor or something like that. That's kind of what they were doing in the blue zones. But it's such a small or a very small amount of fish, or it's a little bit of olive oil. Like in the Mediterranean, it was like, it ends up being like a teaspoon and a half of olive oil a day was the average. And they were walking 9 miles a day because they were farmers. This is on the island of Crete back in the 1950s. That's where the Mediterranean diet came from. That's where the knowledge on it came from. And that's, kind of Sardinia, Italy being one of the blue zones. But anyway, so it's just a very small percentage. And that's why we tend to, maybe for 30 days, give it a try, try it 100%. Because it's almost easier in some cases when you're used to eating meat and dairy and oils and processed foods like I was growing up until I was in my early 40s. Now I'm 53 years old now. It would be kind of hard to just keep it that small. And so it's just because that's what the data says. That's what the data shows. That's why we present that 5 to 10%. But to teach somebody how to do that, it can be difficult. So it's almost better just to say, okay, I'm just not going to do dairy or any meat or dairy or oils or processed foods, and just focus on whole plant foods. But yeah, again, it's everybody's individual choice. So any other questions about anything else we went over? All the different handouts. I definitely recommend everyone that hasn't checked out the website yet, watch the website tutorial on the homepage. Sign up for the class email. So I send out an email every Sunday morning, and it's really important on there. Let me share my screen one more time. On there, go back to the website here. And it's really important to go back to
We can see it.
there we go. Homepage here. So if you sign up right here, subscribe to the weekly class newsletter, you can put your email address, first and last name, and subscribe. So it's really important to have a warning here written right here. So a lot of times you should get a welcome email right away. And then you should also receive an email from me every single Sunday morning. And if you don't, be sure to check your junk file, because a lot of times I have a lot of people that say, oh yeah, I got the welcome email, or I got one of your Sunday morning emails, but then I stopped getting them. It's because they started going to the junk file. So you got to really, it's a MailChimp account, so it's automatic, and so you can subscribe, unsubscribe whenever you want. But definitely I put that up here at the top because I have so many people that I think it goes to I find out it goes to the junk file. And so you want to check that out. But yeah, I would recommend signing up for the newsletter. There's lots of extra bonus information in there about things that are coming up, especially with the Eugene plant-based providers that Charlie, Eric, and I are a part of. We do free community events. We're having a movie social coming up in February, and you can check out the Eugene plant-based providers website through this link right here. And I encourage you to check out that website as well, and just join our community, and you'll get lots of support from Lisa, from if you want, and Charlie does phone consultations as well if you want to set one up with him at no charge. And so I'll let him mention more of that. But I just wanted to encourage you all to utilize all the resources on the website, and I wanted to just give you a snapshot of what's available there.
So there might be time for one more question or two. Anybody? You can raise your hand or just unmute and talk.
So Charlie, we did get our audio.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I don't know where that feedback is coming from. How do we do one at a time? Who is speaking?
So Sharon and Stu.
Okay, Sharon and Stu, go ahead.
Yeah, we just wanted to say hello to everybody. We have been doing whole food plant-based for 8 years, and we started with Dr. Ross back in 2015. So we intermittently drop in, but our New Year's resolution is to start as of tonight. We're calling in from Sayulita, Mexico on Minneapolis time. So as long as we have internet, we're going to join and try to go through the whole class. We're very impressed by what both of you, and Scott in particular, what you've done with this webpage is incredible, all the resources. And during the diabetes section, we'll tell our story.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. And it's really good to hear you from Mexico. So anybody else have any input, questions, thoughts? It seems like most of the people stayed. They didn't particularly get scared off, it didn't look like. So thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a quick question for you. Is there any good in post-honey bunches of oats cereal?
That would be considered a processed food, so it's got a lot of refined sugar and flour, and so little to no fiber. So that would be something to avoid. But you know, it's everyone kind of takes baby steps however they want to go. So I mean, I would say, you know, if you were eating if your choice was bacon and eggs versus honey bunches of oats, you know, it's probably the lesser of the two evils, but ultimately neither would be a good choice. Oatmeal, you'd want to go with fruit or oatmeal for breakfast, for example, with a plant milk in it, or like oat milk or almond milk or one of those kind of things. But again, it's everyone has to, you know, start wherever they're going to start and either go all in or just, okay, I'm just going to make a change for breakfast. Maybe I'll switch from honey bunches of oats to oatmeal for the next week and see how that goes, and then see how.
I do both, so I was just curious because I occasionally have that, and I have for a long time, and I just wondered if there was any good in it.
Yeah, so the good is you look on the fiber and you multiply that by 5 on the ingredients, and the number of carbohydrates should be that number or less. So if you had 3 grams of fiber in a serving and you multiplied it by 5, that would be 15 grams of carbohydrate. I suspect your processed cereal has 20 or 30 or 40 grams of carbohydrate, which makes it a pretty highly processed, not a whole grain, with less fiber and you're kind of cheating your body. Our deficiency is fiber, not protein in our American diet. So stick with the classes, keep learning a little bit by bit, and then you'll make your choices. If you're getting the benefits you want, you'll keep eating what you like. If you're not getting the benefits you like, you might say, well, I guess my taste buds are going to change. And they do change. We're very used to eating a lot of salt and sugar and fat. Our tongue is used to that. And as we change, it's sort of like when you used to drink whole cow's milk, and then you cut back to 1% or 2%, and then to skim, it's your body kind of adapts to those changes. So try not to be frightened off too much by considering making some changes. But eating healthier to how the food is grown in nature, the more you can do that, the healthier you'll be, in my experience. Doesn't mean you can't eat what you want.
Good question.
What else? We like questions. Scott, that was well done, and tons of resources from people, for people to use, and come back next week. And when you have questions after what you've thought about this a bit, you can ask Scott about where do I go for this and that, and we'll help guide you along so that you can, this is not something that it's easy to pick up one session and all of a sudden we know what to do. This is a lot like learning to play tennis or swing a golf club or play the piano. It takes practice. It takes some initiative, but it stretches your brain and maybe avoiding a bit of dementia by expanding your world as you expand your palate and you learn to enjoy foods as they taste. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, I was excited to see so many new faces here. Thanks for coming, you guys. And
yeah, we're
around.
We are thrilled. And again, invite your friends. If they miss a session or 2 or 5, they will be able to make it up easily by going online on those archive sites at the site that Scott has set up. And even if they didn't see archive sessions, they would still learn after they've been through several sessions, because we kind of go over this over and over again. So don't worry if you miss something. Any last words?
Generally, I have the class up by Thursday afternoon. So this class I'll have posted on the website by Thursday, usually by Thursday afternoon. So you can, if you want to watch it again or you want to refer it to a friend or whatever, it'll be in the class archives on the website. And you can figure out where all that is watching the website tutorial on the homepage there. And I also have the class schedule at the bottom of the homepage too. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the homepage of the website, class website, I have the schedule of what's coming up the next few weeks there.
Well, can you think of anything else, or are we good for this week?
I think we're good unless anyone else has a last minute question or comment or anything.
Okay.
Charlie, I do have a question for you.
Okay, Marcia.
You mentioned this afternoon, 60 Minutes. Was that the one on this last Sunday or?
Yeah, it's this last Sunday. It was on obesity.
Okay, thank you.
Injectable diabetes drug that helps with weight loss, and it does, but just like Charlie said, it's missing the point. It's just kind of blamed it all on genetics and just take this expensive drug and it'll all be better. But
they didn't make any attempt to bring in Gregor or McDougall or any of the counter. Like, come on, guys, at least you could think about another reason.
And then they,
calorie density, no mention.
Yeah, and then they also talked about, the side effects are, a little bit of nausea, but it usually goes away fairly quickly. It's like, well, what about the risk of thyroid cancer and pancreatitis and all the other long list of side effects that these medications can have. I mean, again, I'm not saying nobody should use them. I'm just saying it's not, that shouldn't be first line.
Exactly.
Of course, they even disclosed, they said CBS, is it CBS that does the show? 60 Minutes. They said that Novo Nordisk is one of their sponsors who actually
Yeah.
too. So they
Yeah.
disclosed that at least.
Oh, well. Okay, everybody. It's been fun. We'll see you all next week, hopefully, and bring your friends, family. Till the next time. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Night.
Night.